Week number 1 might have been fantastic for you, or it could have been a complete and utter unmitigated disaster. But in today's video, we are either going to be building on that win that you got or trying to get back what your L was last week. So in today's video, we're going to be breaking down my top 40 running back rankings and tiers for week number 2 of the 2025 fantasy football season to help you guys set your lineups. If you're new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. So without further ado, let's get into my top 40 running back rankings and tiers for week number 2 of the 2025 fantasy football season. We begin with the must-start running back ones tier here with my running backs 1 through 12. All 12 of these running backs are going to be must-starts in a majority of the weeks this season. I know that some of the guys that are ranked a little bit lower towards the bottom of the top 12, they might seep into maybe the high-end RB2 or mid-tier RB2 range every couple of weeks, but ultimately, these are guys that you feel very confident in regardless of the matchup. We got Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Bucky Irving, Devon Achane, Kyren Williams, James Cook, James Conner, and these are going to be my full PPR rankings. The full PPR and half PPR rankings are going to be linked in the video description over on Patreon. So Bijan Robinson is my RB1 this week up against the Minnesota Vikings defense in Minnesota on Sunday Night Football. On paper, is this the best matchup? Of course not, but Bijan Robinson is Bijan Robinson. Even in a game where I didn't think Bijan looked all that great up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the man was still the running back number 2. He could take any dump off to the crib, which is exactly what he did in that game up against the Bucs. It was a 50-yard reception for Bijan Robinson. Michael Penix clearly trusts him. He had 6 receptions on 7 targets in that game, and you should be trusting Bijan Robinson. He is a locked and loaded top 5 running back every single week. At number 2, we got Christian McCaffrey going up against the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. Now, not having Brock Purdy more than likely definitely does hurt, but ultimately, even if it is Mac Jones under center, which is my assumption as of right now, Christian McCaffrey is the focal point of this offense. He is going to see a million check down targets. He's going to get a lot of carries. He saw 22 rushes last week, 10 targets. He was the RB number 3 in PPR. I get that Christian McCaffrey, there's a lot of people that worry about his injury risk, that, the other thing, but ultimately, even with Mac Jones, the guy is just going to get fed. He's going to have a big game. At number 3, we got Derrick Henry going up against the Cleveland Browns. I expect Derrick Henry to drop a nice dump on their chest, Cleveland Steamer style this week. Derrick Henry was the RB1 last week. He ran for 2 total touchdowns in that game up against the Buffalo Bills. The Cleveland Browns run defense is going to look like Swiss cheese for Derrick Henry. This is a guy that produces regardless of the matchup, and obviously in a matchup that we like this week up against the Cleveland Browns, he's got to be ranked in the top 3. Next up, we got Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions going up against the Chicago Bears. Now, not the best showing out of Jahmyr Gibbs last week, but that was one of the highest amount of snap share that he has had in his career when David Montgomery was healthy last week up against the Packers in Lambeau. I know we do have our concerns with maybe the Lions offense isn't as good as they used to be, and maybe the loss of Ben Johnson is really going to prove to be a bad thing for this Lions offense, but ultimately, even if the offense does regress, a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't need this to be one of the best offenses in the NFL to succeed. He's another guy that can take any dump off 99 yards directly to the end zone, so up against the Chicago Bears defense that let Aaron Jones and Jordan, the numbers, Mason, what do they mean, kind of tag team them last week. I expect a big one out of Jahmyr Gibbs. Next up, we got Chase Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It is very important to note that in week number 2, you don't want to panic about what happened in week number 1. Just because Chase Brown, quote unquote, shit the bed, he was the RB22 last week, doesn't mean that his fantasy season is over. He can't possibly be better than that, right? You want to kind of stick with your priors after week number 1. Sure, if we get 5 games down the line and Chase Brown's the running back 20, I am going to be scared as fuck if I had drafted Chase Brown. But as of right now, we should be operating like everything's fine. Everything is all good, and that is my assumption. The Jacksonville Jaguars defense really isn't all that good. The Cincinnati Bengals offense as a whole last week was completely and utterly limp dick, completely inefficient. I feel like there's a big bounce back coming this week. At number 6, we got Josh Jacobs going up against the left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders on Thursday Night Football. This is a great matchup for Josh Jacobs. He's the clear bell cow back on the team because they really just don't have a competent RB2. So even if they wanted to use a second running back more. They simply can't because no one is remotely in the same stratosphere in this backfield as a guy like Josh Jacobs. Great matchup for him. Going to see a boatload of touches. Pretty clear that he needs to be ranked inside the top 12. At number 7, we got Saquon Barkley going up against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. I still hold a very large grudge on Saquon Barkley for what happened in the Super Bowl. In that game, I parlayed Jalen Hurts as well as Saquon Barkley, placed a big bet on that. Hey, if both of them score a touchdown, I win $1,000. And of course, Saquon Barkley, nowhere to be found inside of the end zone, and Jalen Hurts scores easily. So I am a little bit pissed at Saquon Barkley, and I know that this game's going to bring back some fucking PTSD from the Super Bowl. In week 1, up against the Dallas Cowboys defense, he smacked them up, boom, like it was easy. Every single week is easy for Saquon Barkley, though if there ever was a matchup for him to have a very bad game, for him to be a quote-unquote bust on the week where he's not a top 10 running back, it would be here up against the Chiefs in Kansas City. At number 8, we got Bucky Irving going up against the Houston Texans in Houston. The Texans defense is definitely underrated. Bucky Irving, pretty meh in week number 1 is the RB15 in PPR, but he did find the end zone up against the Falcons in Atlanta. Again, I don't love this matchup for Bucky, but again, it's not like after one game where he's pretty meh, you're going to jump ship, abandon ship on Bucky Irving. The Buccaneers offense looked very good last week, so just going to continue to roll out Bucky with a very positive ranking. At number 9, we got Devon Achane, running back of the Miami Dolphins, going up against the Patriots. Ashton Jetty scored his first NFL touchdown up against the Patriots, and Devon Achane hit the only fucking touchdown for the Dolphins in that game up against the Colts, and thank goodness he did, because if he didn't, it would have been a bad day all around for every single Dolphins skill position player that you started. Devon Achane is basically linked to Tua. If Tua is able to stay healthy, I get Tua looked like a 2-pack of ass on Sunday up against the Colts, but if Tua can stay healthy, Devon Achane could easily be the number 1 running back in fantasy football due to the amount of receiving work that he will get in this offense. Now, again, I get the offense look bad. Tua's undefeated up against the Patriots. Does that matter? Probably not, because he was undefeated in week number 1, and we got our back blown out. So hopefully, Devon Achane and the Dolphins can bounce back. I still believe in Achane, and I don't think the Dolphins are ultimately the worst offense in the NFL. Even if they end up being a complete and utter disaster, it just has to look better than last week, you would think, right? Next up, we got Kyren Williams of the LA Rams going up against the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. We did just see J.K. Dobbins as well as R.J. Harvey run incredibly well up against this defense last week. Kyren Williams, pretty so-so last week, but he scored. Just like he always does. There's things that are inevitable in life, right? Death, taxes, and Kyren Williams touchdown. This motherfucker lives inside of the end zone. The Titans defense is definitely underrated. Another defense that I believe is super underrated. They had Bo Nix seeing ghosts like their name was Sam Darnold, but ultimately I think Matthew Stafford and the gang here get back to just looking better than they did last week. So Kyren, just a guy that's always going to have that touchdown upside, always got to be ranked inside of the top 12. Next up at number 11, we got James Cook of the Buffalo Bills going up against the Jumbo Jets in Gotham in MetLife. James Cook is dealing with a hamstring injury, but he did practice in full on Thursday, so really no need to worry about that in my opinion. James Cook was a guy that I didn't love in the fantasy football draft process because I thought at ADP, you were kind of just drafting him as like the RB13, and he was probably going to finish as like the RB13. I didn't think he would have that league-winning upside because I just don't think it's possible with the amount of snaps that he plays that he can just keep scoring touchdowns. He can't keep getting away from this, right? But getting away with this. But in week number 1, guess what? The motherfucker's in the end zone as the RB4. Is this the best matchup ever up against the Jets? Fuck no, baby. But James Cook at this point has, even with him not being this snap share monster, with him being a bell cow running back, he doesn't need to be. He gets pass catching work, and the Bills offense is a wagon, so I got to rank him inside the top 12. Final guy here is going to be James Conner going up against the Carolina Panthers. I think, honestly, last week, had Kyler Murray not have been sick, this could have been a true belt-to-ass performance by the Arizona Cardinals where they are just elbow-dropping the New Orleans Saints. They still won easily, but it could have been an even bigger performance. Now with Kyler Murray fully healthy, not throwing up or taking a bunch of dumps before the game, I feel very, very, very good about James Conner. This is just a guy that he's all reliable. Just like, death, taxes, Kyren Williams, anytime touchdown. death taxes, James Conner being like a top 15 running back every single season. RB16 last week. Great matchup up against the Panthers that just got dicked down by Travis Etienne last week. Moving now on into the second tier at the running back position with my running backs 13 through 16. If you guys have enjoyed thus far, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. Now, Breece Hall was a guy that I liked throughout the summer, and I'm not going to sit here and hit the fucking Irish jig, dance on the grave of those of you who didn't want to draft Breece Hall because you were scared of it. I get why. There was all this talk about Braylon Allen, and sure, Braylon Allen is involved, but Breece Hall looked like the 2023 Breece Hall. My thoughts were in the summer that with a non-dysfunctional offense, Breece Hall would be able to show off his full capabilities, and that was the case in week 1 up against the Steelers. 19 carries for 107 yards, 2 receptions on 4 targets for 38 yards as the RB number 11. We just saw Derrick Henry absolutely expose TMZ style the defense of the Buffalo Bills. I don't think the Jets are going to drop their nuts in their mouth, but I do think that Breece Hall is going to have a decent enough game. I feel like, again, he's going to be very reliable. Maybe he won't finish in the top 12, but he could be a very reliable high-end running back too in matchups like this. Next week he gets the Bucs, then the Dolphins, then the Cowboys, so he's going to be running hot early on in the season. Next up, we move to Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers going up against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. There's going to be a lot of people that will tell me, Nick, you know, Chuba Hubbard kind of fucking luck boxed. He spun the mystery box, and he got the ray gun by magically getting bailed out by the touchdown at the end of the game, and maybe that is true, but frankly, it was a touchdown, so I'm going to fucking count it, right? Going up against the Cardinals defense, I think this is a great matchup for Chuba Hubbard. If you guys remember last season, Chuba Hubbard absolutely torched the Arizona Cardinals towards the end of last year, leaving a great note at the end of last season. I don't know what the hell's going on with Bryce Young. I think there might be a lot of issues here with the offense, but ultimately Chuba Hubbard's the clear bell cow in a good matchup, so you've got to feel good about at least a high-end RB2 finish, where he was the RB8 last week in Duval. Speaking of Duval, at number 15, we got Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. Now, all summer long, I was picking up the discount on onto Tank Bigsby. I was talking up Tank Bigsby because I thought Tank Bigsby was better than Etienne, but Liam Cohen said, fuck you, buddy. It's Travis Etienne season, and then they ship off Tank Bigsby to the Eagles for him to be irrelevant unless something happens to Barkley, knock on wood, and now it's just going to be the Travis Etienne backfield. I guess I should have probably seen this coming a little bit more, and I guess I probably should have taken Etienne a little bit more. He looks very, very good in week number 1. Again, you don't want to just gargle on the metaphorical nuts of week 1 and act like this is guaranteed to happen in week number 2. Travis Etienne's back to being that guy he was a few years ago. He's going to be this elite running back game in and game out. I don't know if that's going to be the case, especially since Trevor Lawrence looks like a complete and utter fucking idiot out there. But even with that, Etienne was the RB6 last week up against the Carolina Panthers. This week he gets a wet dream matchup up against the Bengals. And while I do worry about things crumbling here, while I do worry about maybe this not being, maybe he's just a one-hit wonder, maybe we should see more Byshal Tootin this week. We shall see. But ultimately, based on what we saw last week, and based upon the fact that the Bengals defense is Swiss cheese, I feel very good about Etienne this week, even though deep down I do have some slight worries. Final guy in this tier is going to be Jonathan Taylor. Now, I don't really like this matchup up against the Denver Broncos. Jonathan Taylor did kick us right in the gonads last week. I thought he was going to run a train on the Dolphins, and honestly, he looked very good in that game. The stat sheet looks good, but he didn't find the end zone, and he did end up getting banged up. Now, that is not an injury that we should be worried about. It was a neck injury. He got hit in around the third quarter, and the team basically was up by 7,000. They were already on to the next game against Denver. They weren't even worried about the Dolphins. The game was over. It was finished. And then we just saw DJ Giddens get in. Had this have been like a playoff game or maybe a game with playoff implications, then Jonathan Taylor probably would have came back in the game. But when you are just beating the shit out of basically a lifeless body that was the Dolphins, like in Call of Duty, when you win a gunfight against someone, right, and you just start shooting their body, that's basically what the Colts were doing to the Dolphins. They didn't even have to reinsert Jonathan Taylor back into the game. Running back 23 last week just brushed that off. Is this the best matchup ever? No, but Jonathan Taylor's really good. The O-line looked pretty good. The offense as a whole looked pretty good. And I think they are going to rely on him a ton in this matchup. Moving now into the third tier, which we will call the mid-range running back 2s. We've got Alvin Kamara, Javonte Williams, Omarion Hampton, Ashton Jeanty, as well as Tony Pollard. Before we talk about this tier and the rest of the tiers at the running back position for today's video, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you will get a free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as you will receive, if you do a pick'em for $5, you will get $50 additional in bonus funds. Make sure you guys do check out Underdog, link in the video description. And if you don't know how pick'em works, it's incredibly simple. All you have to do is pick at least 2 players. They're higher or they're lower, and if both of them hit, you get paid. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher. An example will be on your screen from week number 1, so make sure you guys do check that out, promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description. So into the third tier here, the mid-range running back 3s, we begin things here with Alvin Kamara going up against the 49ers. The 49ers are basically just one of the most cursed franchises in the NFL. It feels like every single year it's that meme where there's a bunch of dudes in the Bikini Bottom hospital because everyone's hurt. That's just how the 49ers are, and it kind of sucks. Kamara, pretty so-so last week, but he did find the end zone. Ultimately, Spencer Rattler may be the kryptonite for Alvin Kamara, and he only saw 2 targets last week, but I think the targets will increase, and Alvin Kamara just feels, even though the offense itself isn't safe at all, it has yellow warning tape around it. When you think of the Saints, you hear the wee-woo, danger, stranger danger with that offense. Alvin Kamara is just kind of immune to that. Next up, we got Javonte Williams. Now, just like with ETN, I'm not ready to place the crown atop the head of Javonte Williams, right? Like when Derrick Henry runs in a touchdown and Lamar Jackson puts the crown onto King Henry. I don't think we need to do that yet for Javonte Williams. We have seen Javonte Williams do this before where, oh my gosh, Javonte Williams is back. I can't believe it. He's really that guy that we thought he'd be out of UNC. Holy fuck, Javonte Williams was a steal. And then we fast forward 3 weeks and the guy hasn't done jack shit. Now, ultimately, in Dallas, if you are the lead back, you're going to put up fantasy points. Jaden Bonnie Blue hasn't really earned the coach's trust. Miles Sanders fumbles away the game last week, so I really do think that Javonte is the bell cow back here, and you're just going to kind of ride that until the wheels fall off, or maybe you just ride it pause for the whole season, and it ends up working out. The Giants are a wet dream, soft serve, cupcake, bitch-made team. I feel bad for Giants fans, but I actually don't because they've won 2 Super Bowls in my lifetime, and my team has never even won a playoff game. Javonte was the RB5, 2 tugs last week, and I think he could easily find the end zone twice yet again. Next up, we got Omarion Chris Breezy Hampton of the LA Chargers going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. Now, Omarion Hampton's rookie debut, the Hampton Inn, was not very good at all in terms of numbers, but he did get a high usage. Now, going now the second week, they might look to use the Pirate Najee Harris some more, so we'll see how that ends up playing out, but ultimately this week, I do believe Hampton's going to be the bell cow back yet again. Terrible matchup for the rookie last week, though I will note, going up against the Chiefs is a very tough matchup for any running back, especially a running back in his first ever start, and that's why we saw Herbert the pervert throwing the ball a ton. I think they do rely on the run a lot more up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Las Vegas, so I got Hampton in this mid-tier 2, like not tier 2, but the mid-tier running back 2 range. Next up, we got Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty popped his cherry in New England, scoring his first ever NFL touchdown. Round of applause for Jeanty. 19 carries for 38 yards. Not very good, though. Not very nice. Borat does not like that. Chargers matchup, very, very tough. The Chiefs and the Chargers, they went up against each other last week. 2 very, very difficult run defenses to crack. Jeanty's a rookie. They're going to rely on him. They're going to give him a bunch of touches. So Jeanty is going to be fine. He's going to be fine. But if there was a game where he goes bust, it would be this week. And if there was a game for him to go nuclear, it'd be next week up against the Commanders. Next up, we got Tony Pollard. Now, last week, I warned you guys. I said, you know what? I love Tony Pollard because there's no Tajay Spears, but you need to slow your roll a little bit on Tony Pollard as well as Calvin Ridley last week. The Denver Broncos defense is legit, and they might be the pound-for-pound best defense in the National Football League. So with a rookie quarterback, first ever game in Mile High, this isn't at home in Tennessee, this is in Mile High, a scary environment for a fucking rookie quarterback. Cam Ward is probably shitting down his pant leg. Bad game environment. Tony Pollard fed. Gets a lot of looks. 19 total touches. 8 fantasy points. But again, I told you guys to temper your expectations. This week up against the Rams, I will temper my expectations too, but I feel way more confident this week than I did up against the Broncos last week. I think Tony Pollard ends up finishing a lot better than he did last week. Next up, we move into the low-end running back twos with TreVeyon Henderson, Kenneth Walker, as well as Jaylen Warren. Now, TreVeyon Henderson, first ever NFL action, only 11 total touches, 5 rushes, 6 targets, 6 receptions, 24 receiving yards, 11 fantasy points. The Dolphins defense made DJ Giddens look like Bo Jackson. Jonathan Taylor was looking real good before he got hurt in that game. So if the Dolphins defense is trash, which I genuinely believe is the case, and there was a lot of people last week telling me, Nick, you're so wrong about the Dolphins defense. They're finally going to be able to stop the run. Even when you thought the Dolphins defense would be good at stopping the run for the last 3 fucking seasons, they were never able to do it. Every single year, you're like the fish going up to the hook. Oh, look at that nice worm up there. You bite on it and boom, now you're up on earth and you're getting fucking grilled, okay? That is what happens with just buying anything with the Dolphins, especially on the defensive side. I think the offense will bounce back, but if this game is B2A, belt to ass, you're going to see a lot of Henderson to ice the game, put the icing on the cake. I think it might take a while for the team to truly realize, hey, Ramondre Stevenson isn't worth jack shit, and we need to give the ball more to Henderson. It kind of sounded like that's what the coaches were saying after last game, but it is Josh McDaniels. We all know that guy is a certified fucking idiot, but TreVeyon Henderson still definitely worth being started because he's another guy. I talked about him in the summer. He's like Gibbs 2.0. If you just check the ball down to him, sure, there might not be a lot of openings, but he could zigzag his way straight into the end zone. Next up, we got Kenneth Walker. Now, if you drafted Kenneth Walker last week, the fucking red alarm was playing in your head. The panic sets in. You're like, why did I draft this guy? Now, I wasn't completely off on Walker. I wasn't all in on Walker, so it ain't my fault if you drafted him. I loved Charbonnet in the summer. I said Charbonnet is better than Walker, and the team seems to kind of believe that. But again, it's week 2. Maybe he was just stuck in the week 1 motions. Kenneth Walker coming off of injury. Kenneth Walker could easily bounce back here. So again, it's time not to just be completely out on Kenneth Walker. Breece Hall roughed him up last week. But there's definitely much more concern right now than there would have been going into week number 1. Next up, we got Jaylen Warren of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this team does not want to use Caleb Johnson at all early on in the season. A lot of people are going to cut Caleb Johnson, and I have a very strong feeling that once they start to actually push Caleb Johnson into the game and they stop using Kenneth Gainwell so much, then you are going to see that he could potentially be a league winner. But right now, Jaylen Warren is the running back to own out of these backs. This is a team that looked very good in week 1. I'm hesitant to truly believe that Aaron Rodgers is fully back and he's going to be putting up these big games every single week. But based on what we saw in week 1, you got to at least give Warren the credit of being a top 24 running back. Next up, we move into the high-end running back 3s with David Montgomery, JCM, Bill Nye the Science Guy, Dylan Simpson, I almost call him Dylan Simpson, like he's fucking related to Bart, Dylan Sampson, J.K. Dobbins, and DeAndre Swift. Now, David Montgomery, week number 1, the Lions battleship sunk in a bad way. They didn't look all that great. Goff looked okay. He was kind of just taking what the defense gave him up against the Packers. But that was a very tough matchup up against the Packers, right? A lot of people are saying that the Packers have one of the best defenses in the NFL. I don't think a lot of people are saying that up against the Chicago Bears. It's a revenge game for Montgomery. We talked about with Gibbs that last week was Gibbs' second highest snap share total ever with Montgomery healthy, and that is how they're pushing this offense. They're phasing out Montgomery more. He still has touchdown upside. He's still going to get potentially 15 plus touches a game, so you're still fine playing him, but he's just not in the same range that he used to be. Bill Nye the Science Guy going up against the Packers in Green Bay. Bill Krosky Merritt. I don't like this matchup at all. Again, we just saw the Green Bay Packers lock up the Lions and throw away the key. Jaden Stormy Daniels is legit. Bill appears to be the guy. They don't give a fuck about Chris Rodriguez. Austin Eckler's an unk. He looks like Mr. Clean. I like Bill. This is a bad matchup for him, though. So if he was to, wet the bed here, sink the battleship of your fantasy team, it wouldn't be that surprising. Next up, we got Dylan Sampson. Now, I have changed my opinion on Dylan Sampson from the start sit video to the ranking video. I had Dylan Sampson listed as a sit, but now it just doesn't seem like Quinshon Judkins is going to even play. And if he does, he's barely going to play at all. This is a bad matchup on paper. I understand that the Ravens just got absolutely plowed by the Buffalo Bills, but the Ravens do have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and the difference between the Bills offense and the Cleveland Browns offense is like night and fucking day, right? So Dylan Sampson's going to be very involved in the pass-catching game, which ultimately I think is going to lift him up to be able to finish in this range. 8 targets, 8 receptions last week up against the Bengals. 17 PPR points as the running back number 9. Once Judkins truly comes back, though, this could easily go to being a 3-headed backfield of sorrow for fantasy football. But as of right now, if cool Joe Flacco trusts Dylan Sampson, he should be able to be fine. Next up, we got J.K. Dobbins. Now, J.K. Dobbins was the lead back in week 1 as I projected. I think as the season goes along, he's going to start ceding more and more work to R.J. Harvey. J.K. Dobbins also is just notoriously injury prone, the kind of guy. I say this all the time, so some people might be like, Nick, this isn't funny. You say it all the time. I've been saying this shit for years. He's the kind of guy that steps into a pool and somehow the pool drain sucks his intestines out of his asshole like in Final Destination, if anyone's ever seen that movie, right? He's the kind of guy that gets into the tanning bed, right? And then everything gets messed up, right? That's exactly the kind of guy J.K. Dobbins is. He gets hurt brushing his teeth. He tries to clip his toenails. He cuts his big toe off, right? J.K. Dobbins is as unlucky as it gets, and it sucks. But as of right now, he looked good, and he's going to look good until he inevitably gets hurt, knock on wood, we don't refer injuries, or until they cede more of the touches to R.J. Harvey. But going into week 2, the expectation of mine would be that Dobbins is the lead back. Final guy here is DeAndre Swift. Now, DeAndre Swift got all the touches last week, 17 rushes, 5 targets, 3 receptions, and he scored 10 fucking fantasy points. He didn't look good at all up against the Vikings defense, and I think this is a better matchup for him. He's going to be very involved. But what DeAndre Swift essentially is you're just putting a guy in your lineup that, sure, once in a blue moon, he'll be a top 12 running back, but you drafted DeAndre Swift to say the RB23 for him to finish as the RB23. He's not going to win you your league. He's not going to lose you your league. He's just meh. Every single week, he's just mid. He's just okay enough for your team not to be compromised because you started Swift, but your most weeks never going to be like, holy shit, I started DeAndre Swift. I just won my matchup because of it. Thank you, Nick, for telling me to draft him. That's kind of just how I feel about DeAndre Swift. Again, he's not a crumb bum. He's not a bottom of the barrel, useless sack of shit, but he also just isn't the best. Shout out to DJ Khaled. Moving now into the next tier here, which would be the low-end running back 3s. We got both of the Minnesota Vikings running backs off the jump. 30 and 31, Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, followed by R.J. Harvey, Isaiah Pacheco, Tyrone Tracy, and Zach Charbonnet. Now, in week number 1, Aaron Jones was the RB12, 8 carries for 23 yards, 3 receptions, 3 targets, 44 yards, and a touchdown. In terms of actual touches, Jordan Mason dominated the touches, but ultimately, Aaron Jones was the one that was lucky enough to grace the end zone on that nice catch and a thrown ball from J.J. McCarthy. This is a team that wants to play football like J.J. McCarthy did at Michigan. Run the ball a ton, tire the defense out. Once the defense is tired out, you pound them with Justin Jefferson, and you keep running the ball because the defense is exhausted. That's what they did up against the Bears. Maybe they look to open up the playbook more as J.J. McCarthy looked more comfortable towards the end of last game, but early on in that game, like, through the first half, I don't even think J.J. McCarthy threw the ball 10 total times, right? So they clearly want to run the ball, but when you have 2 running backs like this, and the offense isn't the Lions, right? Like, we had David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs just Eiffel towering teams, right? We've seen Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane do the exact same things. It's not like the Vikings offense is on the 2023 Dolphins level or on the level of the 2023-2024 Detroit Lions. So if one of them gets hurt, we have a potential league winner. If not, it's kind of just a guessing game every single week. If I had to guess, though, this week, it would still lean with Aaron Jones. Next up, we got R.J. Harvey. 6 rushes for 70 yards, 1 reception for -1 yard, 8 fantasy points. He looked good. He looked explosive. He sometimes looks like he has no idea how to read the blockers, but I'm not going to judge him too heavily off of 6 touches in my 7 total touches, I guess, 6 rushes. I think RJ Harvey is good, but again, he's going to cede the work to J.K. Dobbins early on, so he can't be ranked much higher than this. Pacheco up next, up against the Eagles. I love Pacheco. Week 1, he looked very good. 5 touches for 25 rushing yards, 5 rushes for 25 rushing yards. He had 2 receptions for 3 yards. He looked good, but they used a lot of Kareem Hunt, and that is very, 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 very concerning. The fact that the Chiefs' offense didn't look the best is also very, 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 very concerning. I know Xavier Worthy practiced in some bit today on Thursday. I don't think he's going to play on Sunday. Maybe he does. I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sin, so don't take me as spreading the most correct injury information. It's just what I know, how fantasy goes. Last year, we were kind of tricked by them being like, oh, Hollywood Brown's going to be back, and then Hollywood Brown missed a serious amount of time, so I'm not going to buy the fat man Andy Reid's word to be just 100% fact. Same thing with Kyle Shanahan, right? You don't want to trust everything out of that man's mouth. Isaiah Pacheco up against the Eagles, bad matchup, but the team has to realize eventually that Pacheco is significantly better than Kareem Hunt. So we'll just wait to see till that happens, till when you got to like force him into your lineup. Next up, we got Tyrone Tracy going up against the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's world. Looked fine in week 1. Didn't look fantastic. Honestly, kind of looked a little bit below good, if we're being real, if we're just being honest. But Cam Scatterboo's not the guy. It's going to be 70% of the snaps, more than likely to Tracy a majority of weeks. The offense, though, is very bad. They are going to be able to dump the ball off a ton to Tracy, so he's going to be better just because of the pass-catching upside. But ultimately, until maybe they insert Jackson Dart, this kind of may just have been a bad pick on Tracy. Next up, we got Zach Charbonnet. Looked better out of the 2 running backs last week. Found the end zone. But again, I don't want to put all of my eggs into the basket of week 1. I don't want to push all my chips to the center of the table on week 1 and be like, week 1 is the truth, because we know week 1 is notoriously fugazi. Last year, at the top 3 receivers were like Allen Lazard, Cooper Kupp, and someone else that just were not very good last season. At running back, there was a lot of pretenders inside the top 10. At tight end last year, there was a lot of tight ends that weren't very good inside the top 10. This year, fucking Juwan Johnson was the tight end 1 in week number 1. So again, you can't take week number 1 as being just the most reliable source of information. You try to piece what you can together. I think Charbonnet could become the lead back on this team, or this could become a double-headed backfield of death. That is just fucking so annoying all season long. Next up, we move into the final tier, and that is what we are going to call YOLO, like the Lonely Island song. YOLO tier, right? You only live once, so you got to play these guys, right? Like, things are getting bad. You're in a deep league scenario where your running backs are hurt. You don't trust your running backs, so you just throw these guys out. 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, he looked good on Sunday. I'll keep it 100 with you. 4.6 yards per attempt, 13 rushes for 60 yards. The Houston offense as a whole looked very bad, though. He was like kind of a bright spot in the offense, which is terrible if Unc Nick Chubb is the bright spot in your fucking lineup in week number 1. Again, don't overreact completely to week 1, but that didn't look great. And if the offense isn't able to produce, even if Nick Chubb is the bell cow running back, which was proven in week number 1, how fruitful can that be if the team isn't that good offensively? Next up, we got Austin Eckler going up against the Green Bay Packers. This kind of feels like it's going to be Bill's backfield, but Eckler is a good pass-catching back, and if they are down to the Packers, which could easily happen with how the Packers offense played last week, then we will see a bunch of dump-offs to Eckler. Again, not an ideal start by any means. Next up, we got Freddie Benson of the Arizona Cardinals. James Conner is the lead back, but he should get around 8 to 10 touches realistically in this matchup, so up against the Carolina Panthers defense, we could see Trey Benson have a decent enough game, but again, you don't want to be relying on him at this point. Final guy is going to be Ramondre Stevenson. He's going to get a decent amount of touches. Actually, we got Braylon Allen first, and then Ramondre Stevenson. I kind of jumped over Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen, any given week, because of how the Jets want to run this offense, it doesn't matter how good Breece Hall looks, they still want to use Braylon Allen. So Braylon Allen will, in some games, get enough touches to find the end zone like he did last week. You're begging for a touchdown if you start him, though. Final guy's Ramondre Stevenson, who saw 7 rushes and 3 targets last week. Didn't look good at all. Averaged 2.1 yards per carry, though the Dolphins defense did just get devoured like those meals that you can heat up. Not sponsored, though. Shout out to Underdog. Ramondre Stevenson did not look good. Things are looking bad for him, but he's still probably going to get like 10 touches. And again, if the Dolphins defense parts like the Red Sea every single week, Stevenson could end up finding pay dirt in the end zones. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video to help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. And make sure you guys do check out Underdog, link in the video description. If you want access to my rankings, full PPR, half PPR, they're linked in the video description over on Patreon. They will be uploaded shortly. I love you guys so much. Hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy!